Welcome everyone to today's webinar of MED, Media Education Association of Media Education in Italy. And this webinar is in English, as you can hear. And the subject is ecomedia literacy. And so we are very pleased to have you with us for this special events that is an introduction to the upcoming Summer School of Media Education that will be held in Italy next July. Summer School is an annual event that brings together educators, researchers, and professionals of media to reflect on the role of media in contemporary society and to share. This is the occasion to share innovative approach to media education. And this year, the summer school will focus on ecomedia literacy, as I said, how media not only represent an environmental issue, but also contribute to shaping our ecological awareness and our capacity to act. And today we are honored to welcome two special guests who will guide us in this reflection. They are Vitor Tomè. Thank you, Vitor. He is from Portugal. And and he's from University of Lisbon and the University Institute of Lisbon. And so he will introduce us to the key concept of ecomedia literacy in Portugal. And thank you to Carolina Fernandez Castrillo. She's from University Carlos III di Madrid, who will share with us concrete experiences and other issue regarding ecomedia literacy in Spain. And this is a very great introduction for our summer school. So I invite you to stay with us, and if you have, we have time at the end for questions or interaction with our guests, so you can write your question in the chat. So thank you very much again, and let's begin. Vitor, Carolina, the floor is yours. Please.
Thank you very much, Professor Di Mele. We are very pleased to share with you some of the results of our research and also the future projects that we hope that we will have the chance to collaborate. Now I'm going to share a presentation in which we are going to show some key concepts related to the main topic that you have mentioned, that is the ecomedia literacy. We would like to introduce this idea of ecomedia literacy as an emerging area of media literacy that teaches the integrating relationship between media and living systems. One of our colleagues that is considered to be one of the main exponents of these theories is Antonio Lopez. From one of his publications, we can understand that is an holistic framework that explores the ecological footprint and mindprint. Those are two big concepts to understand how media are drivers of environmental problems, but also solutions. And this is a very important factor, not just problems, but also solutions. This idea, ecomedia literacy, involves critically examining the impact of media and communications technology on the physical environment. And we have, new concepts, new problems. For instance, you have here for sure about the Italian brain rot and how it's so popular nowadays, the impact of these artificial intelligence productions from popular culture. From ecomedia literacy, we try to understand, for instance, which is this impact in the physical environment, how the creation of these new memes can impact also the nature. This can be part of these theories, these research methodologies that we are developing, but also the exploration of various ways in which media systems propagate beliefs about the relationship between humans and the living systems in a new way of conceiving this, not separating the human being from the nature, but trying to understand how this alliance can be stronger than what is nowadays. It also recognizes the positive contributions of the media to solve the environmental crisis, and some topics that are very important to us are, for instance, civic engagement, the production of user-generated content through alternative media, the idea of global and local citizenship to promote sustainability. Here we see one of the publications by Antonio Lopez, Ecomedia Literacy, in which he tries to explore this concept of nature and how this alliance that I was mentioning can be something more powerful than what we understand nowadays. And other fields that are involved in this environmental communication are, for instance, media ecology, green media studies, eco-criticism, eco-cinema studies, environmental studies, among many others. We see that is an expanding way of interacting with the knowledge we have from media literacy in a new scenario in which the ecology is the basis of our researches. And Vitor and me, we met in this project that you see here, that is Iberian, that is considered to be the most influential hub that we have in Spain and Portugal in fact-checking. And to me, it has always been very important to expand the results of our research in a very effective way. Because what I see is that the way in which specialized journalism, scientific communication is working right now is not so effective. We are not reaching our targets, also in terms of, generational terms. It's important to see how to expand this information in order to get our goal, that is, to create a social change. But first of all, we have to understand the current state of the art. And exactly, the art is a keyword. How to use art in order to get this final result. How to play with this idea of reaching these sustainable development goals in a creative way. I would like to introduce this idea of expanded information. If you are interested, here you see on the right specific research I published some years ago related to the hacktivist practices, how hacker culture and activism can be also involved in this way of exploring new ways of ecomedia literacy. But first of all, let's try to understand some keywords, I would say. We have the idea of info arts, that it's sort of a big umbrella that covers the art productions in which the information is the content and the medium of new artistic projects. So it's a very wide territory. We are especially interested in investigatory art. Investigatory art is connected to investigative journalism. It's true that has not a legal authority, but it's very effective to promote the access to information that maybe we didn't know, or it was told in a way that we didn't pay attention to. And we also have another field that is called regulatory art that was introduced by the hacktivist Paulo Cirio, and is the way in which there are these art practices that others envision and try to regulate the part of the system that is still nowadays not regulated, how to denounce when the regulation is not enough. And it happens a lot when we talk about greenwashing and many difficult topics related to the environmental crisis that we are living nowadays. As we see, it's a wired field. Today we don't have time, but I just wanted to introduce this idea, how this alliance between disinformation, media literacy, and artistic practices can be very effective to reach our goal, that is to communicate in an effective way. I would like also just to introduce this idea of media artivism. This is a new concept that I introduced in 2022, Biennale Arte Venezia, and it consists of artistic media practices that denounce inequalities with the desire to promote a social change. I am very interested in this field because I find that from creativity, from engagement through, different generations, we can really get new solutions. And in this case, specifically related to the environment, we see that there are many related fields like social guerrilla campaigns, creative appropriation as activism. I'm going to show you some examples later, culture jamming, activism, so many. But today is not the day to explore this. I just want to mention some of the different concepts that we can use in terms of media literacy related to this specific problem that we have nowadays. And something very useful as professor, researcher, and also as part of the cultural sector is this idea of mashaptivism. This is another neologism that I use in order to create new experiences with my students, and is a sort of an evolution of an audiovisual collage. Is the natural evolution of the remix culture in which we reuse pre-existing contents in connective environments and the incorporation of new materials to produce original audiovisual montages in order to promote civic awareness about social causes, and specifically related to the ecosystem. We have here two different papers. Again, if you are interested, maybe we can discuss it later if you have any questions. I would like to show you this example from my students, because I know that you are interested in media literacy, so I would like to show you, some examples that are fine, that are, to me, are working very well. For the last 14 years, I have been doing this mashaptivism practices, and here you see that we have a specific topic, always related to climate change, but here in this case, it's about biodiversity. And I work with several teams from different origins, international students, and each team has a different approach. Climate change related to a specific aspect. Every team has also different internal approaches, like typographic play, visual symphony, media coverage, social networks, landscapes, protagonists, fears and desires. Every year we change the topics depending on the suggestions from the students. I think that it's also important to understand which are the topics and the perspectives of the students in order to create something meaningful. And the idea is to create a final piece, 2 minutes length, in which they remix pre-existing materials and they generate a new clip in which they are denouncing a specific situation from a creative perspective. It's true that we have sometimes problems in terms of the copyright. So we also are involved in the Creative Commons atmosphere to see how reusing pre-existing materials is not plagiarism, but is another way of creation. But it's true that sometimes the copyleft world is not so developed as we would like, and we have to figure out how to publish our final results. I would like to show you very briefly one example that comes from the typographic play, and you will see how it works. Well, this is just a very little example. Maybe in another occasion, we will have the opportunity to share more examples from these green guerrilla actions, from cultural creativity, digital culture, that are related to this idea of ecomedia literacy. Um, but today we would like to focus our presentation mainly on this idea of climate disinformation. And how would we define this climate disinformation? Is the intentional dissemination of false information related to climate change and climate action. You see here some examples of fake news headlines. For instance, we see the first: nearly all recent global warming is fabricated, study finds. Or, for instance, don't look now, but our Arctic sea ice mass has grown almost 40% since 2012. There are so many examples. And I would like to remind you that when we hear, if you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. The truth is the greatest enemy of the state. We probably thought that it was Goebbels, but no, it was Hitler. And well, climate disinformation works like this. It's exactly the same. Um, Here we see that the goals of climate disinformation are to undermine trust in science, weaken public support for climate action, hinder policy implementation and international cooperation on climate change, and undermine democracy are very big problems that we have nowadays. And we need to understand which are the new narratives that are promoting this climate disinformation. And now I would like to leave the floor to Vitor and the case studies from Portugal. So please go ahead,
Thank you very
Vitor.
much, Carolina, and thank you for stop sharing. First of all, I would like to thank you, Luciano and Matt, for inviting us, and it's a great pleasure to be here and to take part in this webinar led by Carolina. Carolina, she's one of the great experts that I had the pleasure to meet through Iberian, the Iberian hub of the European Digital Media Observatory. Thank you very much for this not only introduction but thorough explanation of the topic that brings us today here. And in the meantime, if you allow me, I would like to share some slides that can support us understanding the the situation in Portugal. So a few slides only. Let me just start with this one, and this slide is the first great idea. It's in Portugal. It's on the contrary of comparing with other countries. This information focus on environmental issues is not so important as politics. So it's not so I would say popular and so used by those that are focused on disinforming the population, the Portuguese population. So what happens in Portugal? It's we follow the media trends. So the social media is dominated by I would say European and more international topics. This is a little bit complicated because, as Ortaker Weidenschmidt explained, that may obscure some local actions. Having in mind some results from the Digital News Report 2024 from 2012 individuals, we see that climate change and is a topic that is important at the general level concerning all countries studied by the Digital News Report, but in Portugal is less than half comparing with this information focused on politics, for instance. So that's why we said it's, of course, that exists this information focused on environmental issues and climate change, but is not the most important. Then, in a second idea, uh, Portugal reproduces this international agenda And if we have a look, for instance, some news stories or at least some information that was available on social media. One example is did the president of the European Central Bank argue for the end of cash to combat climate change, for instance? Of course, this is not true. This was false, but this was one of the important stories in Portugal. Another topic, and is very recent, is the blackout that happened at the end of April in Portugal, Spain, in the small part of France. Uh, all the news, all the information, all the fake news or disinformation that spread around Europe and outside Europe was similar with the disinformation that we had in Portugal. It was a huge topic, politically important, but in terms of environment, it was not a main story that was explored by those that really are really focused on disinforming citizens. Another topic is sometimes we have this, okay, a lot of trash was uh, left in different streets in Lisbon after an important uh, manifestation that we had of demonstration that we had in Lisbon. This in this specific case, this was not true. This was a photo from several years before in Lisbon, but not from this specific demonstration that happened in 2019. So the strategies are very well known and very international, I would say. In the third idea, the the Portuguese citizens, anyway, and not only the youngsters, but of course the youngsters more than the others, rely on social media. Okay, traditional media is still important, TV is still important, even for young people, even though if they don't watch TV in a traditional way, the TV programs consumption is high, and at least half of them of the youngsters they consume the this media products, but social media is actually the most important source of information, and of course if we can say of disinformation also. In terms of social media, if we rely on the results of the digital news report, for instance, the most important topics on social media according to the Reuters Digital News Report 2023, data collected from more than 2,000 Portuguese. Uh, Environment and climate change represents 43.3% on Facebook, so the most important. Then 42.9, one of the most important on X, the same on Instagram, one of the most important, not the most, of course, but it was. And then the same happens in TikTok and others. So the consumption of media is similar, even though the environmental or climate change is not so a very trendy topic as it happens in other countries, at least, or for instance, in Spain, as Carolina will show us. In terms of the information that is available online, and when asked if they can access all the information they think they need only concerning climate change, environment and climate change, only 13% of the Portuguese say, okay, I have all the information, I can find all the information I need, and 37%, at least the majority of the information I need. So half of the inquired citizens say that, okay, I can find the information regarding uh, environment and climate change, but then on 41% say I can find some information regarding all the amount of information I think I would need. So we can say that there is a lack of information regarding, or at least of reliable information regarding environment and climate change. Some examples of Portuguese stories that we found on social media. This one is the river that passes over Coimbra. Coimbra is one of the ancient cities and has one of the ancient universities in Europe. And the idea is, okay, the Mondego River was just a trickle of water many years ago, so there is no climate change. So this is this kind of stories that are not so strong, at least strong in political terms. And another story that is more related, it's a deputy from the far right in Portugal quote a report on the parliament explaining that, okay, climate change is not really an evidence because things like that happened before. We have a report from 1989 that explains that what is happening today happened before. And actually, it was not true. And this is in line with the final idea. And the final idea is, okay, active news avoidance is different regarding the educational motivations and political motivations. And if we have a look at the digital news report again in 2023, 9.8% in general avoid news or news stories or information regarding environment and climate change. From the left wing, 9%, from the right wing, 27%. And from my part, that's all. Thank you. Carolina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vitor. Thank you very much. We are going to see, well, a specific case of study from Spain related to what Vitor said. And in this case, I would like to mention Maldita.es, that is one of the leading agencies for fact-checking in Spain. And there is a specific project called Maldito Clima that started a few years ago. Yes, and I want to see together with you how some of the key ideas that we have been mentioning are present also in Spain, and how has been the evolution. I like to start this part with Mariano Rajoy, that was the first minister of Spain for some years, and he said in 2007 that his cousin, that was a scientist, was very sure that climate change didn't exist. And to me, it's a point of reference, because I always think about this 2007, in which even me, I was doubting, like, oh my God, if he's a scientist and says that it's everything a lie, maybe we are wrong. And how big has been the evolution from that moment in history until nowadays. With this research that I want to share with you, called Specialized Journalism in the Face of Climate Obstructionism, the case of Maldito Clima, I would like to introduce this idea of this evolution from negationism to obstructionism. Nowadays, it's not so dangerous, this negationist trend that almost 20 years ago was so strong, but it's much more dangerous, the obstructionism, how people knows that climate change exists, but there are so many strategies to avoid that the information arrive effectively to the population in order to press our governments to do something very effective, to take measures on that. And that's why the first part is also related to this one, how from eco-media literacy we can promote that change, how to make people realize, how to make students realize how is the current situation through the use of new strategies that can be effective, from creativity, how to get information in new ways, and to really fight against this obstructionism. From this very serious research that we conducted, it was a research that I did together with Raúl Magallón, that he is a partner of Vitor and me in Iberian, and he's one of the main experts in disinformation in Spain. And through this research, we saw some of the trends that we still have in terms of how to spread fake information about climate change, how to promote obstructionism. Here we see 5 characteristics of science denial, and one of them is what Vitor mentioned before, the cherry picking. Is how to take some specific anecdotes, how some details are decontextualized, or maybe old news from the past, they are presented with a different context in order to fake the reality, to lie. It's a new technique that is being developed now, and this is a huge trend, how to decontextualize previous information in order to lie. If you connect this to mashup-activism, you see that there is a connection with this methodology in which we reuse what others have created in order to give a different content, a different meaning, and how to promote a critical approach about images and contents that we have already seen. This is a technique that is related to ecomedia literacy, but it's also a way in which I try to open the eyes of my students and make them realize that decontextualization is a very big trend nowadays in narrative terms, to be creative, but also to create damage in terms of disinformation. We saw through this investigation that there is a huge polarization of collective intelligence, there are common narratives, transnational issues, and it's required a cooperation of journalists and specialized experts on a global scale in order to promote and to spread ecomedia and climate literacy. In this research, we detected some disinformation narratives, as you see on the right, in the figure 3. In Spain, disinformation related to climate change rises a lot during the summer because every summer is hotter than the previous one, and people are very, very worried about this. And there are so many fake news during this period. Here we see the results that we had from Maldito Clima. There is the repetition of the sentence, "It has always been hot." Also, this conspiracy theory about the chromatic change, like it has always been the same, but now the maps are red in order to be more alarmist, but it has always been the same. And also, it's a tendency, the attribution of the blame for forest fires to environmentalists. Those are some of the main narratives that we found. And through this study, we proposed a decalogue in which we saw that the renewal of the terminology related to climate change was required. Also, the fact to be aware that verifications that affect global narratives should be published in English. Also, to have more in-house expert sources, broaden the base of experts from media in order to reduce a possible gender gap. In addition, we thought that it was important to establish segmented messages for different age groups with adapted formats and languages. Also, it's important to adapt the messages to each network because it's not the same to publish through Instagram, to X, TikTok. So this is very important also. To publish concrete examples, because sometimes we think about this phenomenon in such general terms that we don't really understand what is this about. Also, fact-checking organizations must establish different dissemination metrics for already verified content that repeatedly reappears chronologically or temporally, as what happens in summer with the heat. Finally, we consider essential to promote co-creative dynamics and collective verification, and also to be aware of the fact that specific international events require a specific coverage. And what about our future projects? Vitor and me, we are working together with Ramón Salaverría and Antonio López in this special issue, and we will let you know more from September, that is focused on ecomedia and climate crisis, from environmental disinformation to eco-literacy, for the Journal of Media Literacy Education that will be published at the end of 2026. If you are interested, let's keep in contact because it will be great to count on you. And also we have another event. We have so many now. It's an open and work in progress, but the two main events that we would like to share with you is this International Media Literacy Research Symposium that is going to take place in Rome at John Cabot University. And we are going to organize this panel on ecomedia literacy. So you are very welcome if you are interested. And here you find our emails and information if you need to contact us and join the team. Thank you very much for your attention, and maybe we have some minutes for questions and anything you need.
Thank you, Carolina. Thank you, Vitor. Very, very interesting, your presentation, because the challenge is very big. And so we have to face this new challenge because it is crucial for the Earth. And so we can avoid to skip this commitment. And what I wonder what journalists can do more in regarding these issues, because I think that the is determinant their support, especially in communication of the science and in the right way. So I wonder if there are projects or experience in Spain and Portugal regarding media education for journalists in this sense, regarding this issue. I don't know if you have some experience regarding these, but it could be interesting because usually we look at the school, we look at the educators, and I know that sustainability is an issue that is a subject that our students try to learn and to face. But I wonder how to communicate better science in general in order to make people more aware of the climate change or the right information.
Well, if I may, and I would say that journalists can cooperate in three ways. Okay, first, reporting, and this is really important now. Of course, we know that with the media landscape that we are living now, with this intermediation, it's more and more difficult. So the mainstream media are not the mainstream media for everyone. So most of the information for that is consumed by young people comes from social media, and in most cases, or at least in depending on the thematics or the topics, but in some cases comes from the influencers, and we don't know about. We have doubts about the quality. So journalists at least have a specific way of producing news. The news making is we know as as it works. The second is the journalists, and lots of journalists are working as fact checkers, and of course they know how to fact check, they know how to verify information, and specifically in this area, as Caroline has just explained, the sustainable development goals and all the climate change issues, the greenwashing, which is a very important topic too. And the third is, okay, journalists, at least some of them, they are well known, they are well received in schools everywhere, not only in Spain and Portugal, of course. What we have done in Iberian, not only in Spain, but in Portugal and other countries, we train journalists, and we gave journalists some tools and know how to verify and to develop better reporting. But Carolina, I don't know, maybe you have some other insights.
Yeah, well, Vitor, he's always working in an excellent way in terms of media literacy and how to be in contact with journalists and how to renew the practices of every day. Because it's true that we have this need of ecomedia literacy, not just for citizenship, but also for journalism, for the professionals, because we have new situations that sometimes we don't know how to solve. And for instance, Dana, what happened in Valencia in recently, the last fall, well, in terms of how journalists were able to approach this situation, it's something that we have to reflect about, because this climate crisis situation, unfortunately, I am afraid that there are going to be more present than ever, and we have to be prepared, and we need to really understand how to face fake news in such critical moments, and how to provide information in an effective way. If we are not sensitive about the climate crisis, it's very difficult to inform about this. So here we see that solution journalism, it's also an important aspect, not just to spread this idea of everything is terrible and there is not a solution for this situation, but trying to understand what's going on, how can we do something, and also to fight the eco-anxiety. That is a very big topic I am very interested in and very related to eco-media literacy. And it's not just something related to young people, it's an intergenerational feeling, and it's very based on this idea of not having high quality information about what's going on, and this feeling of being like in a shock all the time. And we need to react, because unfortunately probably is going to happen often what we saw. Yeah, so it's very needed and required. That's why we are working hard on this field and trying to promote different projects and to create also a team, and to open all this to different people that are interested.
Yes, Carolina, and another point that you said is that these issues are not not disinformation, but like a distraction, obstruction. No, there's a new trend that is more subtle, more no, is to just to occupy the channels with many information not useful to help people. No? And so the distraction is the real point now. Not misinformation. It seems this is the the new challenge we have to face, to better understand. Okay, so we we are very proud. We are grateful for your help in understand this very important subject. And so I think that your webinar is a great introduction to our summer school for all the participants. And we hope to meet you very soon in next year in Rome. We hope for the conference. So thank you again, Carolina. Thank you again, Vitor. And we can conclude our webinar. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Grazie.